Lord. First, I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come sit down and talk with me. And it is a little early in the morning, so before we start talking about this season, I want to start off with a little game that's called This or That. Okay?
This or that. Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes, I guess so.
Okay. The first one is the NBA or the NFL?
Of course, the NBA.
Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
Michael Jordan.
Old school basketball or new school basketball?
New school basketball.
Coaching the game or playing the game?
Playing the game.
Now, before we move past this segment, I just knew you were going to say NBA over NFL. And the viewers also want to know, why did you actually choose to go to the NBA versus the NFL?
Well, it's a very easy answer. It's called job opportunity. Where the NBA gave me a job and the NFL didn't. So there's a long story behind it. But just to make it short, I did go through some of the process for the NFL. I didn't go through all the process as far as the combine and those types of things, because I was playing basketball in college my last year, and they chose not to draft me in the NFL draft, but the NBA gave me an opportunity, and I was grateful for it.
Charlie Ward again. He's doing everything for the New York Knicks. That's what Charlie Ward does for you.
And we are definitely grateful for that as well. You played absolutely outstanding basketball. And before we actually move on to talking about the season, I remember I had the chance to interview you when you first came to FAMU. And I remember you shared that this opportunity came about through your wife, Mrs. Tanya. I want you to take me back to that moment of what that process was like for you, and how did you go about building your coaching staff?
Well, I was actually at Hoop Summit right around this time last year, right after the Final Four in Portland, Oregon. And I was out there preparing to go back to my high school job. And my wife sent me a text while we were preparing for a meeting to say that then AD Suggs would be giving me a call and for me to be open-minded and what have you. And I just looked at it, and then I called AD Suggs once I got on the bus to get ready to go to practice. And I knew once my wife sent that message, I kind of started putting two and two together. And once I talked to AD Suggs, when she mentioned potentially this opportunity, and then once the last words she mentioned once we were getting off the phone was that I was her first call and her only call. And it sent a clear message that she wanted me to be here at FAMU. And it was something that, like a few years prior to that I mentioned this would probably be the only college job I would take. One, because I didn't want to move anywhere else. And this was more my speed. And people are like, well, what's your speed? It's one where I can help build a culture that can be long lasting. There's been some great culture and history before me. However, we want to get it back to where it was, during that time where there was great history. And that was how the ball got rolling. And it happened really, really fast. Actually, like 2 days later, we had another talk. And then it started to speed up even more after that. Started getting a lot of buzz, people calling, asking, is this true? I wasn't returning calls. I wasn't doing anything because it just wasn't time. And when it all came out, it was like a 8-day process. I had to hire a coaching agent during that time. Like in 2 days, I had to do that.
Wow.
And my first call was to Coach Lazarus, who's the associate head coach, to see if he was interested in being my associate head coach. And once he said yes, then I said yes to this opportunity because I knew who he was and the work that he had done at FSU and all the other stops. And I needed him to be on the team because I knew what he could bring to the team. And once that happened, he started giving me some other names of people that could potentially be a great fit for our staff. And that's where Sebastian came into play, our development basketball ops guy, and Coach Rob Lewis, who was a GA at Florida State a couple of years before, and then he was at ECU the year before. Year before he came here. And then once I got those guys on board, I reached out to Coach Gene Granger, who I competed against as a coach. But I knew Coach Granger, or his dad was our equipment manager or equipment director at Florida State. So I knew Gene when he was a little boy, like 12 years old or so. When he was a ball boy, he used to be around, and so I've known the family for quite some time. And Gino is his dad is like one of my dad or uncle or whatever you want to call him. So it was just a great fit for our staff, and that's kind of how it got built.
That's amazing. It's very like family oriented pretty much.
Yes, FAMU. There's a lot of FAMU and FSU ties.
Absolutely. And I know like you did get the ball rolling immediately when you got to FAMU. So I also want to mention the FAMU versus FSU game. And that was such a highly talked about moment, not just for the program, but also for you personally. Can you talk about what it felt like when that game was approved and then experiencing your retirement for your jersey?
Yeah, one of the things I never understood was why FSU and FAMU didn't play basketball again, because I was in the last game when we played FAMU, and I was one of the things I wanted to rekindle, just the opportunity for us to be able to play together. Regardless of what the score was, it was bigger than just the score and who would win and all those types of things, but it was more so rekindling, the family, bringing those things back together because we're in the same city, like a mile apart, literally, and it was just the right thing to do. And during that time, God honored the whole thing with being able to retire my basketball jersey, which for all these years hadn't been retired, and it was this moment where it was the right moment, I do believe. And as we all know, we say, well, people saying it should have been done a long time ago. Well, it wasn't, and it was God's timing. And so it was a great moment. Got a chance to my mom and dad to be there, a lot of my siblings and family who supported me through all those years in college. And now to have this full circle moment where my mom and dad, sister who went to FAMU, now I'm, in the orange and green and being celebrated for my time at FSU. And so it was a full circle moment for me to be able to realize it. And then even on top of that, I do believe the referees had something in for me because the guy gave me a tech on the day that I got my jersey retired. But nonetheless, I was just grateful for AD Alford making that a reality. Coach Luke Louts also making it a reality. And I was just like, sometimes we have to enjoy the moment. And I talk about enjoying the moment to everyone else. I enjoyed that moment.
That was definitely God's timing. I couldn't think of another perfect time where your jersey could have been retired. And also, I do remember when you did get the tech, and I was like, not Coach Ward, because what really stood out to me over the season was how you established a culture around discipline. Like you were like, no cursing, clean music, positive environment for your players. So I just wanted to know from like your experiences, what shaped you to be the coach and the man you are today?
Well, I've been blessed, to have great coaches, different types of coaches. And, my dad was, my mom and dad raised me as a Christian young man, and so that was my seed. Of course, I have my own personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and over my time, I've had coaches that were Christian coaches, and they didn't curse, but they got their points across. I've had some coaches that cursed a lot. I just didn't like it. We can all find different words to encourage. And of course, I've listened to, I call it raunchy music, before, and I understand the ramifications, it brings. However, the music has gotten really, really outrageous to the point where I'm like, I can't stand it. But it's part of my Christian values because there's an alternative to everything. And so one of the things I always share with my coaches is, we want to be great role models for our players. And one of the things that we can't accept is if a player on the floor curses the referee out, we got to make sure that we're not setting that example.
Right.
Because if we're cursing at them, I feel like they can curse back at us. And we can't hold them accountable for that. Because if we're not modeling it, then it's hard to hold someone accountable. And so that's one of the reasons why I don't like cursing, whether it's coaches or players. And if a referee comes to me and says that one of my players cursed at him and the guy is a cursor, I can't defend him. And so it's just that whole deal. How do we want people to remember us as? The way we respond. And in our culture, some things are just normal because that's what we eat every single day.
Right.
That's what we listen to every single day. And when I listen to the music that's being played in the locker room, I'm like, that's the reason why. I understand why you guys act and speak like that. And so it's just a part of, my upbringing, along with some of my downfalls and things that I saw in myself when I was doing, listening and watching those certain things. And so I just want to make sure that that's not the environment that I want our guys to come in. And, no smoking and drinking. Those are things that are health related that doesn't help enhance your sport. And, we want to make sure that if the president shows up, they're not smelling, like stench. I call it stench. So it's just understanding, what we're trying to portray, so that we can earn the respect of others.
Right. And I absolutely love that. And I admire that a lot because another thing that stood out to me this season was the chemistry of the team, being that this was like a brand new team pretty much for the most part. But it felt like every player had a lot of growth, like from when they started versus like that last couple of games when everyone actually was playing their role. How did you put that process together when it came to building this roster and putting those pieces together on the court?
Well, it's always tough, regardless of the team. But one of the things that I learned as a player and even as a husband, as a dad, as a teammate, relationships, one of the things you always learn is you have to play your role. And, when I was coming along on a team, my role changed from it changed from day to day or year to year, or within the year. If you were to back up and someone got hurt, you would be stepping in to play. And, I learned how to play my role and learned to be the best that I could be in that role once I understood it. And that's no different in any relationship. When you understand your role, you can thrive in that role. And so the goal for, building our team is to help guys understand that your role may not always be the same, but whatever your role is, you got to be the best that you can be. So if you're the practice player, the guy who's supposed to be on the scout team, well, give us the best look to be able to help us be successful. That's your role. You may not get a chance to play during the games, but your role is to help us, give us a good look. If you're the backup and you're coming off the bench, your role is to look, observe the game, and then come in and give us what we're missing at that time. And if you're a starter, your job is to get us off to a good start. And that's playing with energy and executing at a high level defensively as well. And so just understanding your role was something that takes time, especially when you're building, a new culture and guys coming from different places. But understanding that your role could change at any given time. And we also have an evaluation period. And that evaluation period starts in the summer on what you can do and how you improve over the years. And then we expand whatever it is that you can do well. And so we went through the evaluation period, summer, preseason, non-conference. And once the conference hits is when we start putting rotations together. And sometimes it didn't matter. Like this year we had games where guys would come in and play for a few minutes, but had great impact on the game. And they only played for maybe 5 or 6 minutes. That's what a team looks like. Because you may not play 20, 25, 30 minutes, but if you're playing 5 minutes, you can make an impact on a game. And we had that numerous times this year. I know with AK winning a game for us at Pine Bluff. And he didn't play very much that game, but he came in and gave some great minutes and made the game-winning basket. And so it's just those types of players' mindset, but they have to be willing to accept their role.
Right. I also would like to highlight one of the players, Tyler Shirley, especially with him getting ready to play in the HBCU All-Star game on April 5th. He's been a big part of the team, leading in scoring, averaging 12 points and 5 rebounds. I wanted to ask you, what have you seen from his growth from the start of the season to now?
Well, Ty missed all of the year before due to an injury for the most part, and he wasn't around the team. And so he missed basketball. And so when we came in and we started putting the team together, we gave him more leadership, more of a leadership role as the season went along because we were learning all of the players. And he was one of the guys that we went to a lot to ask his opinion about just different things. And some of that breeds leadership, and it gave him opportunity to take ownership of that part. And you start to see him develop in that role. And he had to make some sacrifices as well to some of the things that he was doing that we asked him to do, and it paid off. And so it was good to see him get better throughout the year, just like all of us had to get comfortable with one another and what we were asking them to do, systems, defensively, offensively, all those different things. And you started to see him elevate his game. The first game he had against FSU was, he scored a lot. And then he started playing a little bit better. And then he had some moments where he didn't play as well. But then once we got in the conference, he started to take off. But he was a top-tier player coming out of high school. And, of course, he had a journey to where he is today. But we needed him to be who he was from a leadership standpoint and from a basketball standpoint to help us achieve the goals we wanted to achieve.
Right. And I know, the season, there were definitely some ups and downs. We were on like a winning streak at a point, and then we had that tough loss to Jackson State that ended up breaking that momentum. From your perspective, what adjustments did you have to make to the team during that moment to get them back hungry and focused like they were in the BCU game?
Well, our season was made of streaks. So we started out the season. I think we lost 5, or we were like 1-5, or we were something. We lost a lot of games in a row. Then we won like 3 in a row, and then we lost a few in a row. And then once we got in the conference, we won 5, lost 4. Then we were win, loss, win, loss. Then we won like 5 or 6 to end the season, with the last game being a loss to Southern in the semis. But it's all a correlation to understanding how to bounce back, because you're gonna lose games, you're gonna win games, but you have to learn from each and every one of them. And so just seeing the evolution from the non-conference, where you're playing in some really, really tough teams, but it's not so much about the winning. And that's the part that we stress the most is it's not all about the winning. It's about the process of getting better, learning from the mistakes that we made. And there are a lot of mistakes in some of the games that we played, the big time games or the Power 4 games, that we could have made the game closer. But we were still learning one another, from a coach's perspective, player's perspective, and we were trying different lineups and different things to try to see what we could evolve to be. And when we started going through the season, it was about bouncing back, learning from each game. And a lot of people didn't think that we would be where we were at the end, but it wasn't so much about that part at the end. It was about how can we progress, each and every week. And so we competed at a high level, offensively and defensively. But the key was making sure that we didn't become complacent. I think when we won 5 games in a row in the SWAC, we came a little bit complacent, thinking that it was just going to happen. We kept warning, kept talking about how can we continue to improve, because we saw that there was going to be a tough road. We ended up losing, I think, a couple on the road. We lost 1 at home to Jackson State by 1 point. Where during that 5-game stretch, we were able to make some big time plays down the stretch to put us over the top. But against Jackson, we were up 7 to 8 or maybe 9 points at one point in the second half late, and we weren't able to close that game. And that was something that continued that spiral, where we were struggling to finish games. But we were able to find our way, and one of the ways that we did it was we kept, holding guys accountable. Some of the guys weren't doing what they're supposed to do, and so they were moving in and out of the lineup. We started some guys that hadn't been starting, but the great part about it was the guys who were starting, and we put them on the bench, not because of something they weren't doing. It was just we wanted to shake up the lineup. And that takes maturity for guys to be able to do that and understand their role. And so Jordan Chapman was a prime example of that. We moved him to the bench. He was starting, and we moved him to the bench, and then he gave us a big lift off the bench during that stretch where we were trying to find ourselves. And that was very, very helpful for us in the long run, because that just showed the mentality of this group. And of course, as coaches, we're having to navigate, who we can take out of the lineup to, try to shake it up a little bit, and who we need to put in. And that's kudos to our coaches for coming together to try to find that niche, but also knowing our players. That's one of the biggest things is our coaches taking care of our players. And what I mean by that is, coaches taking guys out to eat, to talk, and do all those little things that go a long ways in building relationship and trust. And so it was very important for us to be able to make that a reality at the end of the day, because the player coach relationship goes far beyond the floor.
Absolutely.
And it helps everyone understand that we're all on the same page. We're all on the same team at the end of the day. And we do care about you as an individual because we all struggle with something, regardless of who you are. We all struggle with something. And we need people to be able to help us through that. And so all those things we talk about, the wins, the losses, it's about building relationships, about building trust in one another, and we were able to do that through that stretch of wins and losses.
I want to go back to the Bethune game really quick because that was a really, really big game. That was a very electric moment for the students at FAMU because a lot of people came out. I wanted to know, what did that moment mean to you?
I mean, I've been a part of a lot of big games and rivalries, and it was just, I think it was personal for a lot of us because we hadn't beat them in a long time, and their coach rubbed it in our face as well well, in my face at Media Day, SWAC Media Day. And it was, we all have that competitive spirit in us, and so it was one of those games that I think we all wanted. Chat had been here for 3 or 4 years, or however long he's been here, and he never beaten him.
Outstanding game. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
What lessons from this season will you carry over into next year's preparation?
Oh, well, each year the team is going to be different. But one of the things that we will always be preaching is our pace. Our pace leads to being successful or being a champion. And, we're going to be prepared. We got to be held accountable. We got to be consistent in our competitive spirit, with our competitive spirit. And then we have to execute with great effort. And so, our pace is what we're going to continue to be building upon, regardless of who's here. That's our foundation, and we'll continue to pour that into every young man or every student, manager, coach that comes and be a part of it, because we know that that's essential to our success.
Absolutely. And Coach, just the overview, I just want to say you did an outstanding job. And from what you implement to the players, that it's not just about basketball, that is very important. And I just want to ask you the last question. How do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for what I just talked about, just being able to win. And winning doesn't always happen on the scoreboard. It's about impacting lives. And to be able to hear players say that you've made a big impact on my life reminds me of some of my coaches and how the impact that they made on me during my years of playing. Think about my parents and the impact that they made on me, the way they lived their lives, encouraged me to be who I am today. And so I just want to remember, be loving, kind, all the fruits of the Spirit, to be able to make an impact on them. Of course, I'm not perfect. However, I want to strive to make sure if I'm wrong, I admit I'm wrong. And so I want people to remember me as being authentic and not a fake. That doesn't mean I don't lie. We all tell lies, but when we do lie, we have to admit we lied, and own up to it. And so I just want to be remembered as authentic.
I love that. And before we wrap up, I want to play a game called Guess That Baby. So TK, he has 3 pictures of 3 players on this year's team, and he's going to show you, and you have to guess who is that player.
Who is that? Jaquan?
That was right.
That's not Nard. What are you looking?
Oh, wait, let me see. Oh, no, that's not him. Got 2 more tries.
Who's that? That's Ty?
That's Tyler Shirley.
Oh, wow. Is that? Who is that? Is that Caleb?
Yep, that is Caleb Washington.
Oh, Lord.
That was good. So 2 for 1. Well, I'll give him Tyler Shirley. He kind of guessed that one. Yeah, 2.5. Well, thank you, Coach, so much. Like I said, outstanding season, and I'm wishing you the best, and we're all rooting for you. So.
Thank you.